first of all, what's your name and what do you do as a profession?
My name's Becci Manson, and I'm a photographic retoucher. I retouch for the fashion and advertising industries in New York City, previous to that in London.
And how did you encounter the facts that then pushed you to start this project?
After the tsunami in Japan, an organisation I work with called All Hands Volunteers went there. And I worked with them before, I volunteered with them before, and so I decided to do that again and join them for 3 weeks in May, just to do what they were doing. They were doing lots of different jobs, like demudding and gutting homes, cleaning schools, that kind of thing. I went with the expectation of doing that. When I got there, I found the photos were such a huge part of what these people had lost. And one that affected them more than a lot of the other physical losses they'd felt, as far as losing their homes and their possessions. When asked, most of the residents all said that the one thing they wanted back was their photos. So when we started finding them in amongst all rubble and everything like this, it became an obvious connection to try and do something with them. And what started as kind of hand cleaning the photos very quickly became retouching the photos, just simply from my individual frustration of looking at something that could be fixed really, really, really easy and quickly myself. I knew so many people who could do it as well, and that getting the photos digitally to them would be easy. It's what I do every day. So it just became this very quick process of realization of what could be done. And there was nothing really to stop me except myself. I could do this, but I was only meant to stay there 3 weeks. Anyway, so it went from there.
But when you say fix them, do you mean physically fixing them or digitally fixing them?
Well, the project had two parts. We were hand cleaning photos that had been washed away, which was pretty much all of them. We were doing them in several towns, both alongside the local volunteer centres who were doing it, and also instead of the local volunteer centres because they just didn't have enough people. And we did it for local families who brought their collections in to us. So we were hand cleaning them, but then on top of that we were also offering to scan them and get them sent out to volunteers around the world who I had been reaching out to and collecting, and digitally restoring them. The ones that were truly damaged, that really meant a lot. So the ones that were digitally restored were usually like baby photos, formal portraits from weddings, that kind of thing. In Japan, there's obviously, we all know, Japan loves their photographs, and there are more there than probably anywhere else in the world. And they still do a lot of formal photos in studios and with weddings, and so a lot of them were that important, those kind of very iconic, important photos that people have on their wall and in their shrines. So some were restored digitally, and a lot were cleaned by hand, yes.
And once you restore them, do you send them to them digitally, or do you print them?
Well, we give that option to the person who requests it to be restored. Either option's fine. We had a printer. We had another one donated. We could easily print the photos and give them back to these people. Give them copies as well. So family members had also lost all their photos, so we'd do a few copies for them. It's it's a digital file. It's a printer in the office. It's no big deal these days to do that. We asked if they wanted them back by email, and surprisingly, considering it was Japan, I don't think there was more than 2 people out of the quite a few we helped who wanted anything digitally, which is very different from the projects we've done in New York since. The majority it's completely the other way around. The majority of people want the restored photos back digitally.
And approximately, how many pictures did you fix?
We hand cleaned over 135,000 photos. We restored we restored photos for over 90 families. Kind of lost count because one lady in one town kept getting her friends. She would take all her friends' photos and bring them to us, and she gave us like 20 or 30 photos. So there could be another 30 families there, but 90 people came to ask for help, and we restored over 320, 330 photos for them. So, yeah, it's a lot to do in 6 months, but yeah, it was good.
Last question. One might object that in such urgencies, in such a situation, there were more urgent things to do, but why do you think that it's so important to restore memories, restore past one picture at a time?
Well, in situations like that, especially in a place like Japan, people underestimate the psychological problems that people encounter, and the longer time goes by, everything else gets fixed. You know, the temporary housing units were built, people had temporary housing, but the sense of depression in those places, or the problems with depression in those places gets worse and worse and worse over time. And we saw again and again, people's moods do change, or did change when we gave them back some, even if it was just 1 or 2 photos. It's not the most urgent need. The most urgent needs are housing, food and shelter and warmth. And none of what we did came in front of that. We only did stuff that was requested of us, and it helped emotionally people beyond what you could possibly imagine. But yes, it comes secondary to those other things, but it's really important to give that link to someone, that connection back, and just to have something that they reckon when someone's lost everything, to have one little thing that they recognise from before is unbelievably important.
Thank you.